Today, I'm going to talk to you about water, as Ashani said, and how we can um, make it the most hydrating, the most nourishing, the easiest way for the body to take in water and process it for ourselves. Is it something we often just take for granted that any water is going to suit us ideally? And that's not necessarily true. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about digestion. Ayurveda very much focuses on digestion, so it's kind of hard to get away from that topic in Ayurveda. Um, so we often talk about the focal point of our digestion as this thing we call Agni, which is our digestive fire. We consider it a little flame that burns in our belly, not too high, not too low, just enough to help break down, digest our food into whatever appropriate state it needs to be in to continue on its way in our digestive process. So this first part of our digestion is so important. If we don't get it right in our belly, it tends to be off the rest of the way. So we really pay a lot of attention and honor this Agni. We just want to gently stoke it. That's how we think of taking care of our Agni. So we'll kind of circle back on how Agni folds into this in a little while. I'm gonna jump into the topic of water by just putting out the two don'ts that we practice in Ayurveda around water. And we don't practice a lot of across the board, don't do this or always do this, because Ayurveda looks at everything we put in our body that could be potentially poison or potentially medicine. It really just depends on the quality of it. It depends on our individual body, what season we're in, what stage of our life that we're in, how our digestion is on that given day. So we don't look at anything as good or bad, but we do have some don'ts around around drinking water. And the first of them is no cold water. And when I say cold, I mean refrigerated or ice water. So if you think of, water cold enough that you wouldn't really find it this cold in nature. And the other don't is around prescribed quantities of water. And that's usually large amounts of water. We've all heard the drink 8 glasses of 8 ounces of water a day. And there's all kinds of recommendations out there in the wellness community, meaning well, meaning to help us. But maybe we don't need that much water. Maybe we haven't been evolving drinking that much water. So Ayurveda has a different perspective on the amount of water that we should drink. So the don't is really around gulping down a glass of water just to get that quantity in us, that externally measured quantity that's prescribed by somebody. Instead, we're gonna go towards using our inner compass, our body's intuition, and having amounts of water based on what we feel we need in the moment. So yeah, water is often something overlooked in terms of our digestion. We've all heard of foods that are helpful for our digestion, but we don't really hear a lot about water and how it plays into our digestion. So that's another topic we're going to cover today. So before we take our dive into all this knowledge and information aspect of water, I'm going to have us do a little mindful exercise just to get us ready. So we're going to walk through short meditation, mindfulness, exercise to clear the mind of any thoughts that we've placed there, that someone else might have placed there, that are not really serving us. We're going to create some space for maybe some new information to come in that might serve us better. So you might already be having some thoughts starting to percolate around what you believe to be a healthy way of drinking water for you, or a way that works for you. And I know some of you um, are already following an Ayurvedic lifestyle and diet, and you're already doing a lot of these practices around water. So, but some of you might be doing some things that maybe aren't that ideal for your body. You might have some resistance, some thoughts, even, sometimes talking about changing things in our diet creates a little bit of stress points for us. So we're just going to try to create a little space for some new knowledge to come in. So let's close our eyes and go inward for a moment. Take a second to adjust yourself. Make sure you're sitting comfortably, your back is straight. So let's start with a gentle, full breath in and let it all the way out. Let's take another full breath. And as you exhale completely, look for that little pause in between the exhale and the next inhale. So continue to take a few more mindful breaths, letting each one settle a little deeper in your belly. Slowly dropping your attention down in the body to the flow of that breath as it expands and contracts. So in this quiet space, I'm going to ask you to imagine a flowing body of water. Some body of water that might appeal to you or speak to you. It could be a stream or a river, or the gentle tide of the ocean. And then we're going to give this flowing water permission to take any thoughts around how you think you should drink water, and maybe around what your habits are, what any attachments you have to drinking water. We're going to ask this flow to gently carry these thoughts away, just far enough to create a little bit of space. Now I'm going to ask you to put your hands out in front of you and hold them together like a little boat. So you're going to cup some water in this little boat. And maybe you even want to press the sides together as if this little boat is going to hold some water in there. So you don't really want any leaks there. Now imagine a bowl of warm water in front of you, and you're going to dip your hands gently into that bowl of water, and you're going to scoop up a handful of water in this little bowl. So this amount of water that your hands hold right now, this is the only measurement that Ayurveda asks you to use in how much water you drink. We use our own body that's unique to us. Each one of us has our own unique body. And we use this body as a gauge to how much water we should drink. There's no external measurements that come into play. So we want to trust this body of ours to guide us in staying hydrated because our body has its own knowing. And if we trust it, it will tell us if we listen to it. So go ahead and open your eyes. And let's acknowledge this wisdom in our hands right now. This wisdom that our body has. We're going to take our hands and bring them to our heart in acknowledgement. So now that we've created some intention around this topic of water, I'll share with you the Ayurvedic perspective on how we drink our water. So the first thing I'll talk about is when we drink water. So when we get up in the morning, we're usually thirsty. I think most of us probably drink something in the morning. Ayurveda asks us to drink warm water in the morning. We maybe do a little cleansing, splash our face with cool water. Maybe we brush our teeth or gargle a little bit. And then we drink some warm water. And this warm water helps ignite our Agni for the day. So our Agni's just had a night of sleeping, and we want to wake it up. We want to tell it, it's time for you to get busy because we're going to start giving you some food soon. So we wake it up gently with some warm water, just sipping some warm water. This also helps get our larger digestive tract going. So we like to have a daily elimination. So drinking warm water can help that movement start. And the way Ayurveda measures how much water you should have in the morning is this little handful, this little boat of water that we measured. So Ayurveda recommends we drink 8 of those in the morning. And that starts our day, bringing in health. So it's not very practical to measure out 8 handfuls of water in the morning, but you can get a bowl of water and scoop up, it doesn't have to be completely full, just gently scoop up 8 handfuls of water and tip them into, a cup. And you can see how much water is that for you. So the amount of water that it is for me is probably going to be different for each of you. So mine is like just a little over a cup. So, I know if I drink a glass that holds about a cup, that's just my general approximate amount of water I drink in the morning. And again, we don't gulp it down. We just sip it slowly, maybe over 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending how it goes that day. And that's our way of waking up our Agni. So that's the first when we drink water. The next one is very, very simple. And if you really only take one thing away from what I'm going to share with you today, it's this one. And it is we drink when we're thirsty. So there's no picking up a glass of water and drinking it down because we think we're thirsty. It's about paying attention to our body when it tells us we're thirsty. And then we have a sip of water, only a sip. And, one sip might lead to another. We might have 4 or 5 sips in a row because, we have a good intuitive sense of what we need to satisfy that thirst. But there can be a very automated way that our mind tells us we're thirsty and we want to get that hydration in. So we quickly drink some water. And that's what we're trying to take a step back from and step forward with this more mindful, in tune approach, this approach of letting the body be the guide. So you might have a small glass of water, you might be that thirsty, that's okay. oftentimes we end up drinking a glass of water when we've been thirsty for a while and we're not paying attention to it, or we've been thirsty for a while and we didn't have access to water. So it's a nice idea to carry, a thermos of water, a bottle of water, and many of us do that, um, so that we have that water available to take a sip when we're thirsty, and we don't overdo it with a large quantity because we're just parched. So the important thing here is to let our body be the guide for that. And it might take a few days to get used to this approach. It's a little different when you first hear of it. Um, the other thing I wanted to mention around this is if you have pets or you have small children, um, it's interesting to watch how they drink water. If your pet has a bowl of water, they seldom just drink up the whole thing at once. Maybe a dog will if they're like been outside running around and they're very thirsty and haven't had water available to them. But mostly they'll walk by the water and they'll take a few sips, and they'll go about their business, and they'll come back an hour or two later and have a few more. And young children tend to do the same. I have a little 5-year-old grandson, and I'll put a glass of water on the corner of the table for him. And he'll come by and he'll take a few sips, and then he'll put it back, and then he'll go run around for half an hour or an hour, and then he'll come back and he'll take a few more sips. And that glass of water might last him, a few hours. So they're still following the natural rhythm that mammals have followed for thousands and thousands of years. It's just recently that all this focus has been put on how much water we drink and getting enough hydration. So they can often be a nice gauge for us. And then the third time I'm going to talk about appropriate amounts of water is with meals. So Ayurveda recommends that when we have a meal, we put about 2/3 solid food in our belly, and we put about 1/3 liquid in our belly. So if you're having a meal, you can pour a small glass of water, maybe a cup of warm water or room temperature water, and sip that while you're having your meal. And that water will aid in your digestion. But if you have too much water with that meal, or you don't have any fluids with that meal, then it might be a little bit harder to digest that. So we want to get it just right. Why not? We have the opportunity. We have most of the things we need in front of us. So let's aim for getting it just right. And if you're having a meal that's maybe a very liquidy soup, you probably don't need to have that water because you're already getting the liquid in there. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about how we drink our water, because Ayurveda is pretty specific about how we drink our water. The first concept is this idea of processing our water. It's kind of a strange term to use, but it's just what we often end up calling it. Sometimes we call it cooled water. So how we process our water in Ayurveda is that we boil it. And the reason we boil it is because Ayurveda looks at everything that we put in our body. They look at the qualities of it, and they try to balance those qualities with our unique makeup, with the seasons, with all the factors going on around us. So water has these qualities of being heavy, dense, moist, cool. And if you think of a bonfire and you put a bunch of wood on that fire that's very heavy and dense and that has some moisture in it and it's been sitting in the cold, then that bonfire probably isn't going to burn very strongly. It's probably going to put that bonfire out to some degree. So just having straight cold tap water can have that effect on our Agni. If you've ever been very hungry and instead of eating, you have some water, it often quells our hunger. We kind of lose touch with that hunger, and it alters our Agni a little bit so that it's not quite so strong. So we want to avoid that. We want to give optimal water, and the way we do that is we boil it. And when we boil water, we all know that it's infused with all these bubbles. And these bubbles bring lightness and air. They oxygenate the water, and it makes that water lighter for us to digest. So, we turn the water off and it's no longer full of all those bubbles, but it has left that subtle quality. And Ayurveda very much honors the subtle aspect that we can bring into the food and the fluids and the subtle aspect of life out there. So this is the subtle aspect of altering our water to make it easier for us to use it properly for hydration and digestion. So we boil that water and then we let it cool to either room temperature or to warm. And, the easiest, most of us who practice Ayurveda, we just boil some water in the morning and then that's our water that we drink all day. Maybe we leave it on the stove or maybe we put it in a thermos to keep it warm, but it's just an easy way to take care of that once a day. And the reason for the drinking the water warm is that it creates expansion in our tissue. And if you drink water cold, especially ice cold, it creates constriction in our tissue. So if you put ice cold water in your belly, it's going to make your cells and the environment in your stomach contract. And then your body has to work hard to warm that water up to room temperature. And we don't want our body to work at something like that. We want it to be working at creating efficient processes. So we don't tax it with any extra work that we can avoid. So if we give our body warm water, then that opens our cells up. We can take in this hydration more easily. We can take it in more quickly. So it's just really basic physics, the idea of the cold and the warm water. The other idea around this boiled water, and the reason we do it once a day, is because we like our water to be fresh. So water that's been boiled for over 24 hours is not considered fresh. So we just do it daily, and then we always have fresh water. Okay, the last how-to I'm going to give you on drinking water is drinking it room temperature or warm. And I talked about this already a little bit, but it's very important to have it not be cold water, to have it be your internal body temperature is great. It can even be a little cool, the ambient temperature outside. If it's summer and it's very hot out, then it can be slightly cool. And then if you're having any digestive issues or it's cold weather outside, then we usually sip our water on the warmer side, lukewarm or tepid warm, or even a little warmer than that. Not hot, just comfortably warm. So those are the guidelines of how to drink your water on a daily basis. And then there's another thing that we do that's really lovely that enhances the quality of the water, again, on this very subtle weather. And that is what we call moon water. Sometimes it's sun and moon water. But we have these macrocosm influences of the sun and the moon out there. And we can use them to bring balance into our water. So we do this by boiling our water, either in the morning or in the evening before we go to bed, and putting this water in a glass container and then putting it out to absorb the elements. So when we put this water under the sun for the day, the sun is this big ball of Agni. It's this big ball of fire that's constantly creating aspects of metabolism and digestion out there in the macrocosm. So this water will subtly get digested by the sun, making it more digestible for us. And then if you leave that water out there for 24 hours, it can also get the aspects of the moon. And the moon brings in these very gentle, balanced, cooling qualities. Not cooling to create any liability on the body or the digestive tract or the Agni, just cooling enough to bring gentle coolness into our tissue on the very, very subtle level. So this is the 24-hour version. And then in summer, we often observe just the cooling aspect. We make a lot of moon water. It's 112 where I am today. We're having a horrible heat wave. So making moon water is just another beautiful way I can bring the cooling aspect into my body, into my tissue, in a very, very easy way that even just the act of making it helps me stay so much in rhythm with nature, with what's going on in the earth, the rotation of the earth and the rhythms of the earth. It's just a lovely practice, regardless of the benefit that we get out of it. That's a lot of information for something as simple as water. But most of these practices are very, very easy to do once we get used to it, and we let our, maybe some attachments fall away about having cold water, or maybe attachments to feeling like we're not going to be hydrated enough. So I just really encourage you to trust that your body will take care of you if you're listening.